Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Thursday afternoon, or Wednesday, I should say. Um, we are here for the Club Ambassador webinar. Thank you for joining us. I'm joined by Greg Geyer, a member of our executive committee. I'm Jason Funderburg. I'm going to be moderating and asking some questions here. I'm also joined by Mario Mackey, our Director of Member Services. Just keep in mind that we are going to have a question and answer section at the end. So if you do have a question, just be sure to type one out in that questions pane there. So now I'm going to pass it over to Greg Geyer, who's going to begin with for us.
Great, and thanks, Jason. I appreciate the introduction, and welcome, everyone. Thank you for participating today. We've been working on kind of the talking points for this discussion with our ambassadors for the last couple of weeks. And as you can imagine, over the last few days, that dialogue has changed tremendously from what we're trying to do to get the golf courses open to where we are now. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about that story and hopefully give you a greater appreciation for the role and the impact that GAP has had in that. For those of you who are new to the call, last year we launched a program, we called it the Club Ambassador Program. And the whole idea there was to broaden our reach. Obviously, we have an executive committee, and it probably represents, 20 clubs within GAP, but obviously this organization has grown tremendously. So we were looking for a mechanism to broaden some of our people that were most connected with what GAP's doing and to get feedback. Because historically we've had surveys and things like that of the clubs, and to be transparent, those have been hit or miss. We sometimes get good feedback and sometimes we have not gotten any feedback. So we decided to go a little bit different direction, and people like yourselves who love golf, who are very interested in the game and also interested in learning more about GAP, we created this ambassador program. We kicked it off last year. We had a great session at Philadelphia Country Club and learned a lot about each other and really some of the various member services that the GAP has. Because I think historically people think of GAP as running great tournaments and a handicap system, but obviously GAP does a lot more than that. And one of those big things is our ability to influence golf associations. And in this case, we're going to be talking today kind of about the story of the pandemic of COVID and the closure of our golf courses and kind of the role that Mark Peterson, our executive director of GAP, who I know is on the phone, as well as some of our leaders of the organization, Quinn Spitzer, who is the president, and Oscar Mestre, who's the vice president, have done to work with the governor's office and also a lot of other club associations across Pennsylvania to influence and ultimately be successful, so that in a couple of days, those of us who are so passionate about this game will be able to go out on the golf course. A little bit different, and we'll talk a little about that as well. But really, this ambassador organization really is to promote some of the things GAP is doing. And so when you're on the golf course over the next few days, after today, you'll be a lot more up to date in terms of what role GAP has played in opening some of the courses, as well as some of the other things that we've been doing while we could only work virtually, that Mario will walk us through in terms of some of the webinars that we've held, some of the phone calls, and then ultimately the annual meeting. So we had grand ideas for expansion of the ambassador program this year at the Pro President tournament, as well as some other opportunities. As you will see, some of that is going to be limited this year with the way in which we're going to have to respond to the governor's wishes. But there's some things that we will be able to do. And so today, hopefully we can clarify some of the things that are going on, but also take all of your questions in terms of what does this mean for us going forward. But I think the ambassador program is a critical one for us. And then we're going to be asking you at the end, if you know other people who are lovers of golf like this group at other clubs that are not represented, If you could just give us some names, that would be fantastic, because we want this to be as inclusive as we can, to really respond to your needs, but also to get out some of our communications. So with that, I will turn it over to Mario, who will walk you through what's been going on over the last few weeks during this pandemic. So Mario?
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time on, like Jason said, such a beautiful day here in the region, 2 days in a row. I could get used to this. I don't know about everybody else, but hopefully this weekend will start another great season of golf in the region. So like Greg said, we are thrilled to have you on board. This is our second year of this program, and we're looking to grow it each and every year. And as we talked about this in the past and what services we could use this ambassador role for, a big part in general was just club communication. It is how do we facilitate that additional communication between us and our member clubs when key issues arise, and frankly, there's not more key issue than golf courses being closed and what we're doing to help our member clubs out during that time. So we've got some slides to review today. Like Jason indicated to you earlier, we do have a questions pane on the GoToWebinar software there. You'll see a questions pane. You can type in questions for us to review at the end of this call and answer. So I would encourage you to do that, because the other point of this program is to get feedback and give and take. We want to hear your questions so we can help you answer them in the hopes that you can bring back those answers to your fellow club members and help everyone understand what's going on with GAP. So what I want to talk about first is our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As some of you may know, GAP has been working with other allied golf groups in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've created a group called the Pennsylvania Alliance of Golf to lobby for the safe return of golf in the state, and we saw the fruits of that labor come through just a couple of days ago when Governor Wolf announced that golf courses could reopen on Friday, May 1st, with those strict social distancing standards. This was a process that's been going on for the better part of 6 weeks to try to work with those other groups and just emphasize how golf can be played in a safe manner during this time. In the state of New Jersey, this is a slide that I had to update about half an hour ago, because about 1 o'clock, the governor of New Jersey announced that New Jersey golf courses, Governor Murphy announced that they can open on Saturday, May 2nd. Combine those with the fact that Delaware has been open throughout this pandemic with social distancing standards in place, and with that, the entire GAP region will be open for play as of this weekend. So we are excited about that. It is something that we've been working on, as I said, but at the same time, we wanted to make sure it was done right and done safely. And as you can see, and we'll talk about it in a few more slides, we have a handout, if you look at the handouts tab, that has a PDF document about those standards that were created, guidelines for the safe reopening of golf. And it's a great thing to look at and understand what clubs need to do and what you as players can do moving forward. So from the GAP standpoint, we have sent multiple communications to golfers as well as club officials over these past 6 weeks. We had updates on our website, multiple updates there of what we were doing in terms of communication with state officials. We have sent countless social media posts to our social media platforms, which we're all very active and engaged on. And we've also been communicating with, we have a question and answer section on our site where some club officials or members can submit a question that we can answer to. We've gotten many questions that way, as well as phone calls. One of the nice things that we've all learned during this time, I'm sure I speak for all of you on this call, is the ability to work from home and to create those virtual offices. It's there. The technology is there for us. So we've had and been up and running since March 12th. We've been up and running with a virtual office for GAP, and what I mean by that is, obviously we're all on email at home and everything, but we've got our phones. So if someone calls my GAP extension, it rings on my cell phone here at the house. And so we haven't missed a beat there, and we are continuing to work to communicate with our member clubs about any issues that arise. And obviously, as Greg and I were talking yesterday prior to this meeting, the tone of this club ambassador update, it changed in the last 2 days. And we're thrilled to say that because, when we got to Monday morning, we didn't have any announcements yet on reopening. It was going to be a little bit different in terms of the question and answers here, I'm sure, but we are thrilled to see that GAP was able to be a leader in getting golf reopened in the state of Pennsylvania, as well as offering our support for a similar group in New Jersey, and continuing to support our member clubs in Delaware as they've been able to play for the last few weeks. So one of the negatives to this time of closure is we've had to cancel and postpone some events. And I just wanted to touch base on those for anybody who has not seen that. We've canceled or postponed all events that were scheduled through the month of May. The big one there that everybody obviously noticed right away was the BMW Gap team matches, which were scheduled to be held in late April and early May this year, something that touches thousands of golfers in Gap every year. And I know it's something we've gotten a few questions about, but just did want to bring that up, that we did have to cancel the event. Other than wartime periods, it is rare to see a cancellation of the Gap team matches. That's what Gap was founded on in 1897, and it's something we're very proud of as part of our heritage. And unfortunately, we had to make the decision to cancel that this year, but we are excited to be back next year up and running with that event. Another thing is the cancellation versus rescheduling. We are working to reschedule events when possible. The difficult thing there is we're not just trying to recreate the Gap schedule within a condensed period of time, but we're looking at club schedules. You know, not just Gap, but every member club is dealing with the same situation where we're taking what was a 5-6 month golf schedule and condensing it into an unknown period of time at this point. And so as we look and say, hey, we have this Gap event that was going to be held in the middle of May, when can we do this in the fall? We have to look at the club schedules and see what's available there too, because obviously all of our member clubs have key events that hold a lot of history and tradition for them as well, and they're going to make sure to try to fit those in as well. So all of you at the club level are dealing with that too. So while we are attempting to reschedule events when possible, it's not always going to be that way, and we will be unfortunately forced to cancel some. We've announced a few of those already, but on our website at gapgolf.org, there is an updated list of canceled events on a news story on the front page of the website there too, that you can check at any time to see what is or is not going forward this year at this point. One big example I just want to point out of a change we've had to make is the BMW Philadelphia Amateur Championship. And that is, you know, the most historic, longest running event in Gap, individual event. And so typically we have multiple qualifiers leading up to a championship site with multiple qualifying, stroke play qualifying sites that championship week. This year's championship site was Lancaster Country Club, and the plan as of right now is to continue to hold the Philadelphia Amateur at Lancaster, but just one site there, no qualifying rounds ahead of time, and no stroke play qualifying at another site. It would just be at Lancaster. So that's just an example that I wanted to point out of what kind of adapting we've had to do on the Gap side, on the championship side during this pandemic, and some of the tough decisions we've had to make. But we are doing our best to give our golfers and our member clubs that Gap schedule as best we can during this time. I want to talk about communications efforts. Because the point of this Club Ambassador program is to increase and improve communications between Gap and our member clubs, I wanted to point out a few of the key communications efforts that we've done. First of all, we did mail and print and mail the Gap magazine in April. For those of you who get that magazine at home, it is a great resource for news about the latest information on golf in the region. This edition was focused on the World Handicap System, which is something that we are excited and looking forward to promoting. The new World Handicap System replaced the old USGA Handicap System as of January 1st. And for the Philadelphia region, it really went into effect on April 1st for clubs that were open. And that means that this weekend, the World Handicap System will be in effect everywhere in Gap. So for anyone wondering what's going on with the World Handicap System, what does that mean for me? We encourage everybody to check out that article in the Gap magazine, and we were excited to get that in mailboxes in April despite the ongoing pandemic. The Gap webinar series. So one of the reasons we scheduled this webinar for our club ambassadors today was we've had a lot of success over the past 2 weeks with webinars. And you know, what happened was that we realized everybody's working from home. Everybody has time right now because the golf courses are closed and because we're all in this, you know, stay safe, stay home period, that we might be able to get people to engage with us in a webinar series where they typically wouldn't have been able to. So we've run a handful of webinars on everything from course marking to course rating to a series on the new World Handicap System. And we've had over 1,200 attendees, and we've had great feedback from them. We've answered a lot of questions that people would have probably had later in the coming weeks as we get into the season. And so it's been a great way to educate and communicate with our golfers. The last slide I have here in our presentation will review the website where you can access those webinars at, but we would encourage anybody to check those out because we have recordings of all the past webinars available there for anybody to check out at any time. As I said, they've been really successful, and we are excited to continue to do so. We have 4 more scheduled at this point. We have, for example, one this coming Friday is about how you can utilize at the club level social media to actively and effectively communicate with your members during the pandemic. One struggle during this time is obviously you're not at the club level, you're not seeing your fellow members, your club officials and staff members aren't able to see the members on a regular basis. And so we've got some great ideas and some great feedback from member clubs and examples of what clubs have done on social media to present to GAP as a whole. And Dan Schofield, our Assistant Director of Communications, will be leading that webinar on Friday. Next Tuesday, for example, we have a women's webinar, Get to Know GAP. GAP has just under 20% of our members are female members, and we want to always make sure that all of our members are aware of benefits available to them, events they're able to participate in, how to get our magazine subscriptions, anything like that. So we're doing a webinar on Tuesday for the women in GAP to understand all of the member benefits available to them. That will be led by Noreen Moeller from our executive committee, as well as Taylor Hollander from our staff, and we're excited about that. Additionally, next week we have a webinar Wednesday on the role of the handicap committee in the World Handicap System. What can the committee do as part of what are the controls and roles and responsibility for the committee in WHS? And then on Thursday, we have one about slope rating, explaining slope rating, a key part of the course rating system that will be led by John Manos from our staff, as well as Scott Hovde from the United States Golf Association. So as you can see, we're trying to cover a lot of different areas. We're also working on some rules of golf webinars for the coming weeks. What we want to do is do anything we can to continue to provide resources for our members during this time, and in a time where we are all stuck at home. And hey, we're asking you to jump on the computer for sessions like this, which they're all intended to be shorter 30-minute sessions, not a huge time commitment, but hop on, learn a little more about something you may not have known as well, and then have a chance to ask questions too. The last thing on our communications effort is membership email updates. We have continued to send emails. Throughout this process with any of these things I've just talked about, whether it's events we've had to postpone or cancel, or it is statements about what we're trying to do to get golf reopened in the previous weeks. We send those out through our mass email list. If you are not subscribed to the emails and you want to, please reach out to me and I can help you with that. If you hear from fellow members at your club that they're not getting these emails, that's another thing that we can help get them on board for those, because you do have to opt in. We're not just sending golfers an email because we have their email address. We want to make sure that you wanted to receive those. So we are trying our best to continue to communicate with golfers throughout this pandemic and answer any questions that they have. The next slide I have here is about our best practices and standards for reopening. As I referenced earlier, there is a handouts tab with this webinar session where you can click on it and download a PDF that we have posted on our website yesterday. We sent it out over email and we will continue to promote. And it just talks about some of the best practices and standards that have been agreed upon by the Pennsylvania Alliance for Golf, and it really applies around the area too. It talks about staffing standards, limited touch points around the golf course, caddy should be prohibited, removing bunker rakes, no tees, no physical tees out there on each, blue tee, white tee, gold tee, scorecards and ball markers. You don't want to have any of that stuff if possible. Tee time should be at least 15 minutes apart. Pro shops should remain closed to in-person sales. Obviously, restaurants still closed with the exception of takeout services, and clubhouses closed except for limited restroom access. So those are standards we've seen around the country for golf courses, and you can review that document for any more specifics there. The other thing we wanted to talk about with practices and standards, and we're going to work on a communication to all golfers later this week ahead of the reopening, is posting scores. We've gotten a lot of questions about that so far, which has really been, I usually post, if the question is, I usually post scores while at the club. I go to the score posting kiosk in the pro shop or in the locker room or wherever it might be. How do I post scores now? And the follow-up question is, can I post scores with some of these distancing standards in place? So to answer those two questions, I wanted to review both of those. One, posting scores can be done with the mobile app or the website. The mobile app is the GHIN mobile app. We discontinued the GAP mobile app at the end of 2019. We are now using the GHIN mobile app. It ties directly into that World Handicap System. You can download that by searching the App Store on iOS or Android for the word GHIN, G-H-I-N. And once you download that, you can log in with your GHIN number and last name, and you can get logged in. Very simple process to get logged in. You can post your scores that way. You can also go to ghin.com or gapgolf.org and log in and post scores as well. But we would encourage you to look at those online posting options. Last year, we were a little over 50% of GAP's scores posted were online, and we expect that number obviously to be even higher this year. And then the eligibility of score posting. So when this pandemic started, about a week and a half into it, the United States Golf Association, along with some of the other governing bodies from the World Handicap System, released a statement basically stating that with social distancing standards were in play, they were making some exceptions for score posting. And what that was really related to was some of these changes golf courses are making around the flag, which was either removing the flag stick altogether or raising hole liners or putting in, foam pieces to, to limit the ball hitting the flag stick and touch points there. What they've introduced is a recommendation that for handicap score posting purposes, a golfer should post their most likely score on that hole. And the way they define most likely score is basically it's what you expected to make there. If you hit a putt and it hits that raised hole liner, it was going right in the center of the cup, then you're obviously going to record that stroke as a holed out stroke. If you missed it by 2 inches to the left and the ball stopped there, then you're taking one more stroke and writing that down on your card for score posting purposes. So that is the standard in place now, but I wanted to make sure and point that out. We've already gotten a few questions about that today in advance of courses opening, but you are still allowed to post scores in those cases. You should post most likely score. So with that said, that is all we had for the update on the changes under COVID-19. I did want to point out before we open this up for questions, on the screen there, you'll see our webinars page. It's gapgolf.org/gap-webinars. In there, we will have links to presentation recordings. Like I said, any of those ones will be listed there that we've done in the past. We have those future presentations that I talked about. You can also register for them as well. So I would encourage you on this call to join in to those recordings as well as sending them out to your friends at courses. This webinar in particular will be recorded as well. I will email it out to everybody on this list. So you can feel free to pass that along to anybody who wasn't able to join. And like Greg said earlier, we're also looking for more people. So if you know a friend at another area club who's interested in serving in this ambassador role, please have them reach out to me. I know we had a note in the most recent GAP magazine about interested club ambassadors, and we got actually 3 or 4 of you, I don't know if you're all on this call or not, but who reached out as a result of that, which was great. One other thing that, and as we go in there, I'd like to take a chance now to have Jason hop back in and just ask us any questions that may come up here. Jason, do we have any questions that have come through yet?
Yeah, a couple things here. First one isn't really a question, more of a reminder from one of our executive committee members, Dan Dreisbach. Mario,
Yep.
This is more towards your department here.
Yep.
If there's time, please let the ambassadors know that each member club may request from GAP a recommendation as to how to allocate stroke holes on their courses.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jason, and Dan, thanks for submitting that. So as part of the new World Handicap System, there are new recommendations on how a golf course should allocate the handicap stroke holes in the course. And we actually did a specific webinar on that last week, and feel free to go to that page and download that and view the examples of how that's done. And so what that says is, while we're not requiring anybody to change handicap stroke holes or anything like that, if your club is looking at reallocating the stroke holes, there's a new procedure to do so. Previously, you had to look at a history of scores from golfers of a high and low handicap range and compare them and see where the stroke was needed the most. Now we utilize course rating data for that recommendation, and we can provide that for any club that needs it. We've already provided it for a significant number of clubs, but yeah, please reach out to us if you'd like that recommendation.
Another one here. Could you give examples of how you utilized club ambassadors in 2019?
Yeah, I think, and I would ask Greg to chime in a second here on this too, but I think I can speak for myself on the staff as well as our committee, in that we didn't utilize this as much as we'd have liked to in 2019. it's something that we were looking to do even towards the end of 18, and as we got through the year last year, we just didn't do as good a job as we should have in getting everybody together on a more regular basis. And part of the thing is, I know we have a lot of representatives on this call from our kind of newer areas of GAP, whether it's Anthracite in the Northeast area or in the North Central area, where an in-person meeting, for example, is not as easily done. So what we're going to work on this year is trying to reach people in all areas of GAP, whether you're in New Jersey or Delaware, Northeast Pennsylvania or Central Pennsylvania, and reach our ambassadors in those areas with specific initiatives that we can help to promote there.
Yeah, Mario, it's Greg. The only couple things that I would add is there were two topics that we used the ambassadors for last year. One of them was when we originally rolled out the new GAP app last year. There were some questions and concerns with how that went, and so we used this group, probably a subset of people that are on the phone today, to basically let them know what we were doing, how we were working on it, what was going on. It was just consuming Mario's time, and we used this group to actually get out some proactive language on it. And then I think the other one was we were rolling out our new logo last year, and when we met at Philly Country, we were talking about why did we create a new logo? Why did we move away from where we were? So that as people got questions, that you'd be able to respond for us. And if you think about it, this is really an advocacy group that can help better understand and communicate some of the things that GAP is doing, but also not just understand, but actually raise issues. And so I think what Mario and I have talked about is maybe using this more frequently, not only for topics like COVID, but maybe just more generic about some of the things GAP is doing and its effectiveness and are those messages getting through. So I think that's, rather than having the big meetings where we're all together in the same place, I think we may, since we're getting so good at this virtual technology, we may utilize this programming to get that feedback on a more ongoing basis.
Yeah, I agree, Greg, and I think that's something that we're going to look to fine tune and continue to work on. And like this year, one of the things we had talked about just in our preliminary meetings was how to best help communicate these changes with the World Handicap System. And we were looking at, from our standpoint, we had the WHS portal on our website. We've done the cover story in the magazine, which worked out great, and we want to continue to work with groups like this to push initiatives like that are major changes with GAP. On that note, one thing I did want to mention too is we talked about the magazine earlier, and another thing that we try to emphasize for our members is that all GAP members, if you opt in on our website, if you go to your website, gapgolf.org, and create an account, and you go through there and create an account on our site, then what you get from that is the ability to opt in for the GAP magazine and Golf Digest. And what we can do there, it's a free subscription. You just need to give us your address and opt in for it. It is something that I can tell you our members love to get, and not enough members know they can get it. So we are constantly working to just pass that information on. So if you're talking to somebody at your club, we'd love you to say, hey, are you getting that GAP magazine? Are you getting Golf Digest for your GAP membership? These are ways to show the value. It's a physical thing that comes in the mail on a regular basis to show that value of GAP, and we want to encourage everybody to know about that and to understand how to get that. Jason, any other questions coming through?
No more questions. We did have a quick one about whether we sent the guidelines to all GAP member clubs. We did send an email out yesterday to all of those leaders at each club. We also have the guidelines posted on our main webpage at gapgolf.org. And if you'd like to review them yourself personally, we also have a PDF file hosted in here in the handouts portion of your window pane that Mario referenced earlier. That has all of those guidelines that were provided to us.
Yep. So I think if there are no more questions, I really just want to take a few minutes to thank everybody for signing in today. I know we're all excited for this weekend and being able to get back out on our golf courses for those of us who haven't been able to play this year. And so I'm glad we were able to schedule this week before that happened so we could get across some of these points. But I would encourage you at any point If you have any questions at all about any topic GAP related, please reach out to me. One of the advantages of this program, or the goals of it, is to have you have a contact at GAP and myself who can take these calls and questions and then forward them out to, if it's something I can't answer, I can put you in touch with a staff member who can. We are always looking, like I said, to increase communication, to answer questions about GAP, and to make sure that everyone knows what we're doing and why we're doing it. So please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or anyone on staff at any time with any questions. But with that said, I'd just like to again thank everybody from signing in here. Jason, it looks like maybe one more question just popped in, I think.
Yeah, it looks like it. Someone asking, can we be included on GAP communications to GMs and golf staff? There's a little bit more here. If we know what is being asked of our clubs, we can better follow up to see that things are getting done.
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly possible. I help out with putting together those emails that we send out, and I'm sure we can get a list of the club ambassadors included on each of those emails we send to the GMs and pros.
Yeah, and I think the example there that's given is a good one for one where we would do that. That's about like if we have signups for the GAP team matches or questions about that we're looking for. That's a great example of something. Obviously, some communications are solely for general managers or solely for golf professionals, but if we have larger scale ones that we think that club ambassador program could be useful on, I certainly we would do it. And like Jason said, he's the point person for us there, and we can definitely include that. So that's a great suggestion.
And Mario, it's Greg. Just one last thing for people. I would just say as you walk away from this, first of all, thank you for participating and the questions. I hope that as our ambassadors, you get a sense of the impact that GAP has made. And again, as I mentioned earlier, just the tremendous efforts by Mark Peterson and Quinn and Oscar and the team and the leadership of GAP and influencing in the right way the mechanisms to allow us back on our golf courses. That has been a huge effort, and I know has been consuming for them over the last 6 weeks. So I hope that you can share that with some of the people you play with and others, because it's really been an unbelievable effort. That would be number one. And then number two is I know you're going to be getting questions about the rescheduling of events. And Mario went through it in great detail. I get it all the time on the team matches. I mean, huge disappointment because the team matches are just so they're just so fantastic. And I know people on this phone have gotten great experiences from those over the years, and you will have them going forward. But just with all the other crunch of rescheduling that the clubs are doing, it just is. It's not going to happen in 2020. And I hope you understand that. And the same with other events. You know, obviously we don't know when we will be able to start events. We've canceled them through May, but I would just say stay close. We will be communicating as we have been already about that. We will try to reschedule as we can, but we know that that's going to be compressed into a calendar that's going to be full with what the clubs want to do as well. So, you know, just help people understand those are the dilemmas that we're going to be working through. But the influence of GAP is still well and kicking, and we're working hard to make sure that experience for all our golfers is the best it can be. So again, for me, just thank you for your time, and hopefully those messages resonate with you.
Yep. Thanks, Greg, for those thoughts, and I agree. And just one final note before we sign off here, I will, along with sending a link to the recording of this webinar, I'll send a list of all the current ambassadors we have for clubs too. So if you have someone in mind at another member club who would be interested in the role, you can see if that club already has someone or not, and go ahead and forward a name to me if you think that would be appropriate. So again, thank you all for joining us today, and please reach out with any questions. Otherwise, have a great day, enjoy the nice weather, and we will talk to you soon.